So the Sanier is one of our new sort of cohort of winemakers collections. So this got launched just before Christmas. The idea was it would be a post-harvest celebratory thing. We'd launch these 3 new wines immediately after the harvest, and we'd have a big party here, and everyone would be here, and it was going to be really lovely. I'd selected the canapés; they were going to be phenomenal. And obviously, COVID happened. It's totally pissed on my chips. So the second launch was it's not really happened yet. It's the wines are out there. They're available in Majestic and a few other places, and we're really excited by it. We've got 3 new wines in the collection. A new artist, so Lothar Gotz, the German, really lovely guy, a really cool guy, really nice to meet him when he came here. And yeah, he does these amazing sort of murals and stuff. You should look them up. There's one in Eastbourne on the side of an old people's home, I think it is, or a day centre. And it's just incredible, though. There's just a wall of colour. And yeah, really stunning work, really clever. Totally out there. Yeah, cool. So he was a really good link up. So he did the artwork for these 3 wines. Really nice, sort of diminutive German. Really cool. So the Sanier is the first time we've ever made a sparkling rosé using the Sanier method. We are big advocates of making wines sort of via assemblage, so i.e. blending a red with a white, so that's how we traditionally would make our sparkling rosés, or any rosés, matter. They don't have the Champenoise, but of course they own the rights to doing assemblage, and no one else can do it that way at all. So Sanier is this idea of so you crush and destem the grapes as if you're making a red wine, but rather than leaving the wine on the skins for 7 days, 10 days or longer, we left them on for about 36 hours. That was just to extract that little bit of colour and to give it that. And it's created this wonderful hue. I think I'm not sure how well it shows on Zoom, but it's this wonderful sort of quite fresh copper pink, like very it's like a sort of, I don't know if anyone remembers doing metal work at school, but it's like when you heat copper and it starts to go that slightly pinker version of copper. It's like that. And then the nose is it's totally out of our wheelhouse. It's not a style of wine that I've ever made before, and it's incredibly different. It's crushed dried herbs and it's sort of rose water and dried flower petals. Really, really neat, really cool. And this is a wine that it's perfect for food. I've always said it's a sort of gastronomic rosé. It's got loads of sort of tannic structure and grip. Fabulous, quite dry, very floral flavour. Really cool wine to have with food, to serve alongside food, and delicious.
I think I was quite surprised because, as you say, for the type of wine that it is, I was expecting a lot more fresh red berries, much more of a that pronunciation, but it wasn't at all. And so I was really pleased when you started talking. I was like, is this me? Because it's not quite like a normal sparkling rosé. That isn't a negative. It's not a negative to say that it doesn't have the abundance and the burst of fresh red berries, because it's actually a really interesting take on it, and it's quite nice. And I think this would be really good with food, which is something that you touched on a little bit there.
Absolutely, it is. It's not a traditional rosé. It's not, pink with delicious red fruit, which is a phenomenal way of making rosé. This is something. It sits in its own world. It's got a really unique style. It's that grip as well that I love. And It's really well structured. It's a grown-up rosé. It's yeah. It's sort of gravelly one that's sat in the corner in the room. You know, it's got it's awesome, and I love the wine. And it's again, and it buys in entirely into our sort of, ethos with the Winemakers Collection. It's unique. I don't know an English wine that tastes anything like that, and I think that's cool.
I just realised. I think what I'd like to try it out. Try it with. I'd like to try it with some pâté on toast. I think the richness of the pâté would work really well with this wine. Is a really this is a contradiction, but like a subtle and defined edge. I mean, it's nicely soft, but it would cut through. I think the fattiness of the pâté, and it would be a wonderful balance. Yeah, wow, this is a really interesting wine.
It is. It's really, it's a really special wine, and I'm not worried about it because in its development, when we bottled it, and it's always had that nose, and it's been fascinating to sort of crack it, but it always worries you because it's totally out of your sort of wheelhouse of style, and it's not like anything Hush Heath makes. But I was so thrilled when we did the initial dosage trials. The plan was it was slated for release either 2020 or 2021, and we always knew it was going to be a winemaker's wine. It was just when it came out. And when we did some trials in the middle of 2020, and I hadn't tasted it for 3 or 4 months, and it was just there. And you were like, yeah, no, that's good, that's perfect. And that's what this is. And but I don't mean to call my wine perfect, but you know what I mean. It's exactly what we want. It's exactly what we were looking for, and I love it. And it's a really, I think this idea we haven't had a sort of gastronomic rosé, something that you can have with food. Like pâté is a great pairing. It's a really good idea, and I like that we've got that now. We've always had. I mean, we make a wine called Bertie's Reserve, which is an extra dry sparkling white and is phenomenal food. Food wine. It works amazingly with anything fatty, anything rich, and we've always had that, but we've never had a rosé that I'd confidently say is really to go with food. And that's why I'm really excited about it.
Do you think it's got? Sorry, do you think it's got much potential for aging?
Yeah, I think. And what's quite interesting about this is we make quite a lot of this. Most of our winemakers' wines tend to be quite a small quantity. The next wine we'll come to is we made 2,000 bottles, and that was it. And so usually they're quite small volume things, whereas there's a bit of this. And what's phenomenal is the development we're getting just between disgorging. Here at Hush Heath, we traditionally disgorge in very small batches, and we're quite big on recently disgorged. I personally prefer the style of shorter cork aging and fresher, because I think that's closer to what the winemaker wants it to be and where the winemaker wants it to go. It's harder to judge grit than it's quite hard to judge grit. So I like it to be fresh, and the development we're already seeing in this wine since those initial disgorgings 6 months ago is fantastic. And so I'm really encouraged by its aging potential, and even on call, although I didn't say that out loud.
Well, it's really fascinating. I'm almost a bit perplexed by it because of the texture that you've managed to achieve. It's really, really interesting, particularly the way it coats the tongue, as I've already said. But yeah, I really want to try it with food. So I just feel like it'll just pair really well with something fatty. Excellent.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm chuffed. That's good. So wine number. the next wine.
The next one.
So this is Les Six or Les Sixes, depending on what mood you're in. So this is a 2014 sparkling white, and this is hyper rare. I remember this being made. So this was my first vintage in the cellar, which was 2014. This was my first ever harvest, and I remember these grapes coming in. And it's made from 6 of the 7 champagne grape varieties. So we actually are lucky enough to grow six of the champagne. So we grow Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, of course, and we are also lucky enough to have some Pinot Blanc, Arbane, and some Petit Meslier. The only variety we're missing here at Pinot Gris. It was really hard to track them down actually, but to make this Septadial in 2018. And so we've always had these 6 varieties, but usually they just end up being blended away. So the Arbane and Petit Meslier are very small percentages of our growing. So I mean, of all the vineyards that we have, they represent less than 1%. So they're tiny blocks. But this wine is, so this was made in 2014. It's almost entirely from the Middle Stratford Wood block, which is our warmest vineyard. And it's then spent subsequent 5 years on lees. What I love about these wines and what I love about the variety, particularly Arbane and Petit Meslier, is the sort of, quite hard to, it's almost indefinable, but it's very pronounced, is their impact that they have on wines, even in very small percentages. So this is 8.5% of it is Arbane, and 3.5% is Petit Meslier. Wait, is it? Yeah, that's right. I've got the back label next to me. I should have used that straight away. So they're very small. So they represent 12% of the blend, and yet they're there, and they're very pronounced, and they're very clear. But at the same time, I can't tell you exactly what it is that you're tasting that is distinctly Arbane and Petit Meslier, but they're there. So yeah, no, really exciting. And it's been sat here. It feels like the project, the wine that, I mean, we were talking about this wine when we made this in 2014, but we've been talking about it since 2016 onwards, about potentially releasing it. Maybe we should do it next year, maybe we should do it the year after. Tasting it and tracking it, and it's been fascinating sort of journey for the wine and where it's gone. It's the different sort of. It's quite hard with sparkling wine. The traditional view is that a wine's development is almost like a bell curve. It's better and better and better and better. And it reaches a peak and then drops off. It's not like that at all, especially when it's under leaves. It's more like it oscillates a lot more. So it reaches all these different peaks and troughs. It comes through all these different phases over the years, over the months. And it's fascinating to watch. It's been fascinating to do it, and we found it was starting to reach a new peak at the start of 2020. So like, cool, it's happening this year. We're going to do it. It's going to be this year. And then the pandemic hit. Save it for another year, but no, I think we made the right. It's this fantastic wine, incredibly complex, and very aromatic. And I think the aromatics are coming from the Pinot Blanc and the Arbane and the Petit Meslier. You get that sort of almost fried thyme, not quite eucalyptus, but pushing towards that on the nose. That's sort of where that comes from. And then, really delicious sort of. You get some really nice autolytic notes, but not too many. It's still quite a beautiful wine. When you consider it's had 5 years on lees, that's probably because it didn't undergo any malolactic fermentation at all. It's very pure expression. There's enough lovely sort of lime, zest. Phenomenal wine.
It's got a really interesting body to it. I think it's the main thing I'm picking up on it. As you say, a lot of it's different in the sense that you haven't got as many of the very ripe citrus elements that you get in a lot of English wines, particularly sparkling wines, which I love. This is very different. It's like it's calmed down. There's a very interesting texture to the wine, which is something I think you just mentioned. That's very evident. Again, I wasn't sure what to expect, particularly hearing you talk about it, because there's a lot going on there. Again, great to try with some food. So I'm just trying to contemplate it all in my tongue. It's alive.
It is. It's bizarre. In a really good way. I often get criticised because sometimes my tasting notes sound as though I don't like a wine, but it's not. I love this. But it is. It's really unique, and it's really weird. It's got that. You get some of those autolytic notes, but then there's sort of almost like plum and then some sort of some zest and just complicated and just delicious.
I'm a bit perplexed by it in a good way. There's a lot going on there, and again, it's hearing you speak about it and what you're saying. I've never tried a one like that before. I think that's what it is. I'm trying to digest it literally.
Yeah.
Should we move to the next one?
Yeah, I suppose so. So wine number 3 is this is the Suitcase 2018. So this is a Pinot Noir, and it takes its name. It takes its name from the 2 clones that we used to make it. So they are Pinot Noir 777 and Pinot Noir 828, and so these are sort of the major clones of Burgundy, and they're sort of all the big houses of Burgundy often grow these clones. And the story runs that in the sort of 60s and 70s. Napa Valley growers were coming to France, taking cuttings from these vineyards, wrapping them in damp clothing, then putting them in their suitcases and flying them to the US. Because at the time in the US, you couldn't import live vegetative matter because it would have to go to quarantine, and obviously if you put a cutting in quarantine, it would die. So they were smuggling them out of France and into America to start these vineyards. And it's almost certainly apocryphal, but I think it's a wonderful story. And they are by far the best clones. From our perspective, for English red wine, I don't think you can make red wine with better clones than these. And they're tricky. They're harder to grow, and that's because they have particularly thin skins, very tight bunches, and you don't tend to get particularly high yield on it, which makes it terrible sparkling wine because that's all about yield. They're a nightmare to grow. Actually, I really don't envy the vineyard team at Hall. We've got quite a lot of 828 and we've got quite a lot of 777. But the intensity of fruit, the colour you get from them, the flavour is second to none. And this is sort of my favourite. My line with this is if you like old man Burgundy, you'll probably like this. And I think this is probably the closest England has come so far to like an old man Burgundy. And I like that. I love old man Burgundy. It's not in no way meant to be disparaging. But it's got that sort of quite earthy nose on the nose, quite truffle palate, and it's the oak regime is a little bit heavier than we would usually use. We're pushing 30-40% oak. It's all brand new French and American. So for us it was quite again out of our style. We've never tried one of our Pinot Noirs. They're always quite light oaks. They're always quite youthful. We rely on that and the lightness of climate Pinot Noir to make it a lively, playful wine. This is more somber, more grown up. Good. That's cool.
Yeah, I was going to say that the immediate elements you say that I picked up on the mouth was the softness, which I think picks up on what you were saying. You're saying it's quite mellow. It's very soft, and it's not a question of being unpronounced or there's not enough going on. It's just very nice. And I use the word mellow. It's quite it's a very easy drinking wine, very nice and soft. A lot of reds they can be out of balance, but this isn't, and it's a very nice mouthfeel. But it's soft. That's the word I want to use in a good way. It's nice to have something that is balanced, and it still feels quite pure as well. Considering what's gone on, there's a lot of purity there to the wine, particularly with the fruits. But yeah, I'm a big fan of English red wines. I still think we've got a lot to do as an industry for the reds, and we'll see. We were speaking about this earlier, but it's a really good example, and I urge people to try it and to get out there whilst you can, because wines like this, aren't in huge numbers, and it's more rare that the red wine has been pulled off to a standard that's going to want you to buy more and more and more, which is something we were talking about earlier.
Thank you very much. I think you're right. I think it hits a lot of those demographics. It's a delicious red wine, and it's really hard to. In England, it is really hard, and there are some phenomenal examples out there, and sadly, there are some not quite so phenomenal examples. And I'm really proud of where Hush Heath sits, because we work bloody hard on our red wines, and we want that reputation, maintain that reputation.
That's come through. Sorry, I was just going to say that's come through all of the wines. There's this very common thread, particularly hearing you talk about how much effort you do put in. That you're striving for, trying lots of, all these different grape varieties, particularly on the previous wines that we were discussing, and it's very evident in the wines. It really, really is.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just you wait till you hear about my Aligote project. I can't find any Aligote. Just we don't have any, but I'd like some.
Shall we try the next one?
We've tried them all.
Oh, have we? I thought, look at me. Of course. I'm too keen.
That's your lot.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to wrap up the wine tasting with?
No, I'd just like to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. It's very rare I get to sit down and taste these wines on block. Obviously, I've got a few at home, but yeah, and it's really enjoyable and really thoroughly enjoyed talking about them, and so receptive as well, and quite excited.
Good, my absolute pleasure. It's been a great experience, and it's always good to hear the winemakers speak about their wines. So it's a treat for us all. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute privilege. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.